She walked into her husband's millionaire wedding with twins and slapped him hard in front of all. What followed wasn't just chaos, it was a heart-wrenching moment of truth, betrayal, and a mother's unstoppable courage that silenced the entire room. My cherished and unshakable lovely family. Welcome to Sir Kelly Stories. Each of you holds a deep place in my heart. Your support, through every like, comment, and subscription, is the reason this storytelling family keeps growing stronger every day. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please click that subscribe button now and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment. Stay tuned. This story is about to unleash something truly emotional and unimaginable. The morning air in small-town Ohio smelled like fresh toast and toddler shampoo. Emily Carter stirred her coffee absent-mindedly, her eyes tracking the chaotic blur of little limbs across her modest kitchen. Liam was chasing Lily around the table, both 5 years old, both laughing with a freedom Emily hadn't felt in years. Their giggles were her alarm clock, her sanity, and her lifeline, all rolled into two tiny human forms. Emily, 29, had grown used to the silence that came once they were at school or asleep, the kind of silence where memories crept in uninvited. And they always began with him, Ethan Carter. Her chest still tightened a little at the sound of his name. Not out of love, no, not anymore. But something deeper, something closer to the ache of a wound that had never properly healed. She met Ethan during her sophomore year of college. He was the kind of man who walked into a room like it owed him something. Tall, sharp jawline, boyish grin, and a mind that moved faster than most could follow. He talked about algorithms like they were poetry and kissed her like she was air after drowning. Within 3 months, they were inseparable. Within 6, married at a courthouse in Kentucky with nothing but adrenaline and a pair of fake gold rings. They told everyone it was for love, but deep down, Emily knew it was also to escape. Ethan had dreams too big for Ohio, and she had a heart too loyal to let him chase them alone. For a while it worked. They were poor but electrified, living in a 1-bedroom apartment with a leaky faucet and dreams scribbled across napkins. Ethan coded through the nights while she brought him coffee and massaged his neck. He promised her everything. He whispered plans for their future, like fairy tales written in HTML. Then one morning, he packed a duffel bag, kissed her forehead and said, "Just for a few weeks, babe, I need to secure funding. Investors want to meet in New York." Emily smiled. She even packed him snacks, but he never came back. She was 2 months pregnant when the calls stopped. 4 months when the emails bounced. By the 7th month, she stopped lying to herself and accepted the truth. Ethan was gone. No goodbye, no explanation. Just vanished. She didn't have the luxury to fall apart, not with twins kicking inside her belly like they already knew the world owed them a fight. She worked long shifts at a diner, took night classes online, and clipped coupons like a pro. She rocked Liam to sleep while filing taxes, braided Lily's hair while budgeting overdue bills. And every once in a while, when the twins were asleep and the lights were low, she'd whisper, "Where are you, Ethan?" into the dark. The silence always answered. That morning, 5 years after the silence began, Monica, her college roommate and only remaining close friend, called while Emily was folding tiny socks on the couch. Her tone was strange, hesitant. Don't freak out, okay?" Emily paused. "You're leading with that, definitely freaking out." There was a short silence on the line before Monica dropped the bomb. "Ethan's getting married this weekend in New York." Emily laughed, sharp, disbelieving. "To who? The ghost of decency?" "No, to Chloe Kensington," Monica continued. "You know, daughter of Martin Kensington, billionaire real estate guy. I saw it in the Post. And Emily, they're calling him Ethan Crane now." Emily's world tilted. Ethan Crane. A new name, a new life, all while she was scraping burnt toast and bathing toddlers in lukewarm water because the boiler only worked when it felt like it. She hung up her phone, stared at the wall. The man who left her pregnant, the man who erased his past like chalk from a board, was about to marry into money, power, and legacy. Her hand trembled as she picked up a crayon drawing Liam had made. 3 stick figures labeled Mommy, Liam, and Lily. No daddy in sight. Something stirred in her chest. A fire she'd buried under years of responsibility and heartbreak. No, she wasn't going to cry. She wasn't going to break. She was going to New York. The past has a cruel way of clinging to you. Not like a memory, but like a smell you can't scrub off. As Emily sat on her edge-worn couch that night, her twins finally asleep in their shared room, the hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the apartment. Her eyes were open, but she wasn't seeing the chipped paint on the wall. She was back there again, 5, maybe 6 years ago, when Ethan had first begun to change. It started small. Late-night calls he'd taken the hallway with the door shut tight, whispers behind the bathroom door, business trips that lasted longer than planned, excuses polished to perfection. "It's just a meeting, Em. I'm doing this for us." For us. That phrase had become his favorite shield. Every question she asked, every doubt she raised, he'd kill it with those 2 words and a kiss that tasted like half-truths. She had wanted so badly to believe him. Because love like that, fast, fiery, all-consuming, doesn't just flicker out, or so she thought. So, she made excuses for him, told herself she was overthinking, that this was just the price of ambition. After all, who was she to stand in the way of his dreams? But even back then, the signs were there. A missed anniversary, a look in his eyes that didn't quite reach her anymore, the sudden change in passwords, a strange charge on their shared card from a hotel in Miami. And then, the night he packed his bag and said he was flying to New York just for a week. He had kissed her belly, she was barely showing at the time, and told her to rest. He never came back. What followed was a slow-motion free fall, days without answers, nights curled up by the phone. She called everyone, friends, colleagues, his parents. No one had answers, or they weren't giving them. It was Monica who finally convinced her to go to the police, to file a missing person report. Emily had walked into the station with trembling hands, clutching a recent photo of Ethan and her marriage certificate like a lifeline. She remembered the way the officer had looked at her, puzzled, before stepping away to check the system. When he came back, his face had changed. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "your husband isn't missing. According to our records, he filed divorce papers and signed them 6 months ago." Emily had stared at him, frozen. "I never signed anything." He shrugged. "Sometimes people do things they don't tell us about. But he's listed as the petitioner," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "There was no court hearing, no delivery notice. I never even got served." The officer looked sympathetic but firm. "You might want to talk to a lawyer. There's nothing we can do here." She had walked out of that station dizzy. Divorce papers, signed by who? She never saw them, never held them, never knew. The betrayal wasn't just personal. It was legal, cold, calculated. And it hit her now, years later, with even more weight. Ethan didn't just abandon her, he erased her, rewrote their story without her consent, scrubbed her out of his history like she was some forgotten chapter that didn't matter. And now he was about to marry someone else. Not just someone else, but Chloe Kensington, the daughter of a man who practically owned half of Manhattan. She wanted to scream, to rip the world open and shout her truth into every corner of the internet. But she didn't. She didn't cry either. Instead, she called Monica. "I'm going," Emily said simply. "To the wedding?" Monica's voice was sharp with shock. "Em, are you sure?" "He erased me, Mon, and the twins. He's built this picture-perfect life on a lie, and everyone's going to clap and throw confetti like he's some damn fairy tale prince." "So what are you going to do? Crash it and throw cake in his face?" "I don't need cake," Emily said. "I have the truth." There was a long pause. Then Monica whispered, "Do it." Emily didn't sleep that night. She stayed up printing every document she still had, photos of their wedding, proof of her pregnancy dates, hospital forms, the few emails from him before he vanished. All of it. A paper trail he thought had been forgotten. The next morning, she packed a small bag for herself and the twins. She told them they were going on a little adventure. Liam brought his toy truck. Lily carried her favorite pink bear. With every step she took toward the bus terminal, her resolve hardened. The ticket line smelled like diesel and burnt hot dogs. Her debit card barely scraped together enough for 2 adult tickets and a child pass. The teller looked at her tired eyes, then at the kids clinging to her sides, and didn't ask questions. The bus pulled out of Ohio at sunset. Emily stared out the window, her reflection blurred against the glass. She wasn't going to New York for revenge. She was going for justice. Ethan Carter, now known to the world as Ethan Crane, stood on the rooftop terrace of his penthouse suite in Manhattan, cradling a glass of scotch that probably cost more than what Emily made in a week. The skyline sparkled like a promise he'd finally kept to himself. Down below, the city buzzed with the energy of ambition, betrayal, reinvention, things he knew too well. At 33, Ethan had done what most dreamers only whispered about. He'd taken an idea scribbled on a bar napkin and spun it into a multi-million-dollar tech empire. His luxury app, Luxora, catered to the ultra-wealthy, giving them exclusive access to bespoke travel, luxury real estate, and high-end experiences that most people would only ever see on TV. It wasn't just an app. It was a ticket into a rarefied world, and Ethan had become its poster child. Investors loved him. The media called him the elegance engineer. Fast Company ran a profile that dubbed him a brilliant disruptor with mysterious charm. Even his name, Ethan Crane, sounded like it belonged in boardrooms and bold headlines. Crane wasn't just a surname he'd adopted. It was a brand he'd built from the ashes of a past he hoped no one would ever dig up. And now he was about to cement his place in New York's elite with a wedding that was straight out of a billionaire's fantasy. Chloe Kensington, 28, was the youngest daughter of real estate legend Martin Kensington. She was beautiful, media-savvy, and came with a trust fund fat enough to buy a private island, or 3. Their engagement had graced the covers of society magazines, her diamond ring practically blinding in every photo. For the press, it was a power match. Brains and beauty, tech and real estate, charm and capital. The wedding was scheduled for that Saturday at the Marlowe, an opulent ballroom draped in golden chandeliers and attended only by invitation. Fashion influencers, venture capitalists, Forbes cover stars, they were all buzzing about the union. What no one buzzed about, of course, was Emily. When asked in interviews about his past, Ethan kept it light. "I was married once," he would say with a practiced smile, one that tugged the corner of his mouth just right. "It ended amicably. No kids. We were young, chasing different dreams. It was always the same story, clean, simple, untraceable. He never used her last name, never spoke about where she lived or what she did, and when anyone asked why there were no wedding photos online, he simply shrugged and said, "Not everything needs to be public." Only a few people had ever dared to dig deeper, but Ethan had money now. Money could bury a lot of things. He had changed his name legally, hired a high-profile lawyer to erase the old one from business records, and even scrubbed his past off the internet. No one had connected Ethan Carter to Ethan Crane, not even Chloe. As far as she knew, her future husband had been a scrappy Midwestern kid who made it big through genius and hustle. She adored the story, how he came from nothing and built everything with just his brain and grit. What Chloe didn't know could fill an entire courtroom. Ethan had made peace with the lies. In his mind, Emily was a closed chapter, one that had dragged him down when he needed to rise. He had loved her once, sure, but love wasn't enough when survival demanded ambition. When he found out she was pregnant, he panicked. He hadn't planned for kids. He hadn't planned for Ohio. He had planned for this penthouse views, champagne toasts, a Kensington wedding. And so he'd done what he believed he had to do, disappear cleanly and never look back. Now just 2 days before the wedding, everything was in place. Chloe's custom gown was flown in from Paris. The menu included truffle risotto and imported oysters. The media team had signed NDAs. Even Chloe's father, who initially mistrusted tech boys, had warmed up after a few rounds of scotch and Ethan's charm. Martin Kensington had no idea his future son-in-law was a runaway husband with 2 5-year-olds who carried his eyes. Ethan smiled to himself as the breeze rolled across the rooftop, ruffling his designer suit jacket. He didn't feel guilt anymore, only momentum. He had outrun his past for 5 years, but what he didn't know, what he couldn't feel in that moment, was that his past had just bought a bus ticket and was headed straight to his wedding. The grand ballroom of the Marlowe Hotel was a sea of gold and white, lit by crystal chandeliers that sparkled like stars captured indoors. The floral arrangements had been imported from Italy. The air was thick with perfume, whispers, and the glitter of generational wealth. Ethan stood tall in his custom Armani tux, fingers laced with Chloe's perfectly manicured hand. Cameras flashed from all angles, and guests leaned forward in their white padded chairs as the officiant raised the mic to begin. Backstage, Chloe adjusted her veil. Her lips painted the perfect shade of bridal pink. Her father stood nearby, glowing with pride. Everything about this day had been orchestrated to perfection. Every angle, every color, every bite on the menu. The only thing no one had planned for was what happened next. Because just outside those grand doors, Emily Carter stood still. Her black dress was simple, the fabric hugging her figure modestly but firmly. Her hair was pulled back in a neat bun. In one hand she held Liam's small palm, in the other, Lily's. The twins were dressed in matching navy blue outfits. Liam clutched a paper truck drawing. Lily held tight to her worn pink bear. Their eyes darted up at their mother, confused but trusting. "Are you sure?" Monica whispered behind her, nervous. "I've never been more sure," Emily said, then stepped forward. When the giant double doors swung open, the room fell into a stunned hush. For a moment, all the gold and sparkle faded into a silent, frozen snapshot. Emily stood in the doorway, flanked by her children, framed in light like something out of a dream or a nightmare, depending on which side you stood on. Guests craned their necks. Chloe's smile faltered mid-sentence. The officiant stammered, and Ethan, his blood ran cold. It was the way she walked that made everyone stop breathing. Not like a woman crashing a wedding, but like a woman arriving at a courtroom with truth in her pocket. Her heels echoed on the marble floor. Gasps began to ripple through the room. Ethan's face turned pale. "Emily," he whispered, but no sound came out. Emily stopped a few steps from the altar, her gaze fixed on the man who had once promised her the world. He looked terrified. "Good. You forgot to invite your real family," she said, loud enough for the front rows to hear. Before anyone could stop her, she raised her hand and slapped Ethan so hard the sound cracked through the ballroom like lightning. Chloe let out a tiny gasp. Guests recoiled. One woman shrieked. The sound of a wine glass shattering in someone's lap punctuated the moment. "I think your guests deserve the truth," Emily said, voice trembling but unbreakable. She turned to the crowd. "Everyone, meet Liam and Lily. They're 5 years old, and they are Ethan Carter's children." Gasps. Audible, undeniable. A couple of guests started filming with their phones, already sensing this would be trending in minutes. Chloe took a shaky step back, her father's face twisted in confusion, anger, disbelief. Ethan's mouth opened, then shut again. He looked trapped, like a man buried alive under the weight of secrets he never thought would surface. No, he finally choked. "Emily, we divorced." "We never divorced," she snapped, pulling a manila envelope from her bag. "At least not legally. I never signed a thing. But you did. You forged it. You lied to the court, to the world, and to her." She jabbed a finger in Chloe's direction. Chloe's mouth quivered. Emily opened the envelope with steady hands and pulled out 2 birth certificates, her original marriage license and a notarized letter from the Ohio Records Office. She held them up one by one as cameras clicked like a firing squad. "These are the receipts," she said. "Our marriage license, my children's birth certificates, your children, proof that you walked away from us like we were garbage." People were standing now, whispering, filming, some shaking their heads in disgust. The Kensington PR team scrambled toward the stage. Chloe's eyes filled with tears, her entire body going rigid. "You told me you didn't have kids," she shouted, turning to Ethan. "You told me it was over, that there was nothing left behind." Chloe, I didn't think she'd," he stammered. "You didn't think I'd survive," Emily snapped. "Didn't think I'd have the strength to raise your kids, to keep breathing while you became a millionaire off lies." Security hesitated near the edge of the scene, unsure who they were supposed to escort. Emily looked unshaken, righteous. The twins, still quiet, clutched her skirt, their wide eyes blinking in the chaos. Chloe turned and ran off the stage, tearing her veil off in a flurry of lace and sobs. Her father followed, red-faced and furious. Emily stepped down from the altar, her shoulders straight, her chin high. Ethan didn't follow. He didn't speak. He just stood there, exposed, broken under 1,000 watching eyes. As she walked past the cameras, one reporter shouted, "Ma'am, can we get your name? Are you really his wife?" Emily paused, then turned. "I'm Emily Carter," she said, "and I'm the woman he tried to erase." Then she walked out of the ballroom, her children's hands in hers, leaving Ethan behind in a sea of silence and shattered lies. The morning after the wedding exploded into scandal. Ethan Crane's face was everywhere, just not for the reasons he was used to. His carefully curated image, once associated with innovation, elegance, and tech brilliance, was now splashed across headlines with words like liar, bigamist, and deadbeat dad. Every media outlet from BuzzFeed to Forbes dissected the story. The millionaire groom who got publicly slapped at his own wedding by the mother of his secret children. The video had gone viral within hours. Emily's voice echoing "Meet his children" became a trending audio clip on TikTok. Screenshots of the moment she slapped Ethan became memes. Some people called her a legend. Others debated whether she should have handled it privately. But most were united in one thing: Ethan Crane had lied, and badly. His company's investors didn't even wait for the dust to settle. Chloe's father, Martin Kensington, immediately pulled out of a $40 million funding round, citing irreparable ethical concerns. A few others followed suit, and by mid-morning, Luxora's stock had dipped dangerously. The board called an emergency meeting. Ethan didn't show up. Meanwhile, Emily Carter, once invisible, overworked, and forgotten, had become the center of a national conversation. Photos of her walking out of the ballroom, flanked by Liam and Lily, were circulating like wildfire. Journalists labeled her everything from the forgotten wife to America's resilience. Her phone buzzed constantly. Talk shows wanted interviews, podcasts begged for her perspective, even news anchors offered prime-time slots. Everyone wanted to hear from the woman who brought down a tech giant with nothing more than the truth and 2 small children. Monica, ever the realist, warned her to be careful. Not every spotlight was kind. Still, Emily couldn't ignore the power shift. For the first time in years, the world was listening to her, not dismissing her, not ignoring her, but truly listening. She turned down most of the media requests, at least for now. Her focus remained on her children, whose innocent faces were starting to appear in articles she hadn't approved. She pulled them from school temporarily, choosing instead to keep them close, protected. Then Ethan called. Well, he didn't call directly. A lawyer reached out first, asking if Ethan could speak with her. Then a second email came, this time from Ethan himself. It was long, rambling, full of apologies and regret. He asked to see the kids, just once. Emily deleted the first 2 messages, but the third one was different. It wasn't just an apology, it was a request. I understand I don't deserve anything, but I want to meet them. Please, let me look them in the eye. Emily sat with that message for hours. She stared at Liam as he colored in a sketchbook, at Lily as she rocked her bear to sleep. She thought about the years they'd missed, the nights they cried, asking why they didn't have a daddy, the birthdays she celebrated alone. And then she thought about what kind of father Ethan might be now, if he was even capable of that. In the end, she didn't do it for him. She did it for them. A week later, she agreed to meet under her terms. Public, neutral, safe. The park was nearly empty that morning, a thin mist curling around the playground swings. Emily arrived early, Liam and Lily bundled in jackets, their curious eyes scanning the path. Ethan arrived 5 minutes later, dressed in a hoodie and jeans, no entourage, no arrogance, just a man stripped of titles, nerves trembling in every step. He stopped when he saw them, his breath caught audibly. "They're beautiful," he whispered. Liam tilted his head. "Who's that, Mommy?" Emily knelt down, steadying her voice. "That's your father." The children blinked, unsure what to do. Ethan slowly lowered himself onto the bench, eye level with them. "I'm sorry," he said, voice cracked and raw. "I should have been there. I should have never left your mom. I was scared and stupid and selfish, but you didn't deserve that." Lily reached for Emily's hand, watching Ethan closely. Liam held onto his drawing, folding it tighter in his grip. No one spoke for a long while. Ethan looked up at Emily, eyes red, voice trembling. "I know I can't fix what I broke, but I want to try. To be something in their lives if you'll let me." Emily studied him carefully. He wasn't the man who vanished with a suitcase and promises. He was older, frayed, humbled, but that didn't erase the pain. It didn't unmake the choices. "You lost the right to us a long time ago," she said, her voice steady, "but it's not too late for them. You want to be their father? Then earn it, slowly, patiently, without expectations." He nodded, tears slipping silently down his face. Emily stood, took her children's hands and turned toward the path. She looked back once, not out of regret, but out of finality. "We're not your shame, Ethan," she said. "We're your truth." And with that she walked away, strong, unshaken, and finally free. Ethan's PR team moved fast, because they had to. Within 48 hours of the wedding fiasco, his public apology tour began. At first, it was just a statement, a typed-out confession posted to his social media accounts, admitting to his past, owning up to the lies, and apologizing to Emily, Chloe, and most of all, to Liam and Lily. But the internet was not impressed by pretty paragraphs, so he went further. He launched a donation campaign through his company, pledging millions to charities that supported single mothers and abandoned families. He sat for a stiff interview, visibly uncomfortable, answering difficult questions about how he'd built a new life on the ruins of someone else's. It was raw, it was calculated, and it was met with mixed reactions. Some people rolled their eyes, calling it damage control. "He's only sorry because he got caught," they said. Others were more forgiving. "At least he's trying," a popular morning show host remarked. "That's more than most." But even with his face back on magazine covers, this time shaded with scandal instead of success, Ethan felt the coldness of the shadow he now lived under. Luxora's board of directors had brought in new leadership. Ethan still held shares, but no voice. His empire had become a brand he was no longer welcome to represent. Meanwhile, across the river, in a modest brownstone apartment in Brooklyn, Emily Carter was turning her own crisis into something powerful. She hadn't planned to be a symbol. She didn't care for fame. But the offers wouldn't stop. One day, it wasn't just journalists calling, it was a publishing house. They wanted her story, told in her words, not as a tabloid drama, but as a memoir, a reckoning. She said yes. The advance was more money than she'd ever seen at once, and for the first time in years, she breathed without the weight of bills crushing her lungs. But more than the money, it gave her something she hadn't had since Ethan left, a voice. The book, Unseen, A Mother's Truth, became a bestseller within weeks of release. Emily's writing was clear, aching, fierce. She didn't paint herself as a victim or Ethan as a monster. She simply told the truth, and the truth hit harder than fiction ever could. With her rising platform, Emily launched a foundation that helped single mothers find housing, childcare, and legal support. She spoke at schools, town halls, and women's shelters. She didn't scream her story, she shared it, one honest sentence at a time. Liam and Lily thrived in their new school. Emily would walk them to class, past people who sometimes paused, recognized her, and whispered. But she kept her chin up, always. Not because she wanted attention, but because her children were watching. One afternoon, while Liam painted suns and Lily told a classmate she wanted to be a superhero like Mommy, Emily's phone buzzed with a notification. Chloe Kensington had released a statement. "I thank God every day for the truth that saved me from marrying a man I didn't truly know. I wish Emily and her children healing and peace. And to Ethan, I hope you find the man you were supposed to be." It wasn't bitter, it wasn't cold, it was closure. Emily read the message once, then deleted it. She had her own closure already. As for Ethan, he watched it all unfold from a quieter place. He rented a small apartment uptown. No paparazzi followed him anymore. No boards invited him to keynote. He was a cautionary tale, a chapter closed too late. Sometimes he walked by the park where he first met Liam and Lily. He stayed at a distance, watching them laugh, play, and grow without him. Redemption, he realized, wasn't about grand gestures or donations. It was about showing up, and he hadn't. Now all he could do was watch, while the family he abandoned learned to shine without him. A year had passed, but it felt like a lifetime. The ballroom wasn't as extravagant as the Marlowe, but it shimmered with something more valuable than luxury: hope. Gold ribbons lined the tables, laughter echoed from every corner, and the air pulsed with celebration. At the center of it all stood Emily Carter, radiant in a deep emerald gown, her curls cascading down her shoulders, her eyes glowing with quiet strength. This wasn't a wedding. This was her gala, the first annual fundraiser for the Unseen Foundation, a charity she'd built from nothing but her pain and purpose. It had taken months of late nights, calls, spreadsheets, and moments where she questioned if the world would listen. But they had. And they were here, tonight. Beside her stood Liam and Lily, both dressed smartly. Liam in a miniature suit, and Lily in a silver tulle dress. They held her hands as she stepped onto the stage, the spotlight warm and unwavering. Applause rippled through the room, not for a scandal, not for a viral moment, but for a woman who had survived, then transformed. Emily leaned toward the microphone. "When I walked into that ballroom a year ago, I didn't know what would happen," she began, voice steady. "I didn't walk in to destroy someone. I walked in to be seen, for me, for my children, for every mother who's been erased, dismissed, or left behind." The crowd listened in rapt silence, many with tears in their eyes. "And tonight," she continued, glancing at her kids, "I stand here not as someone who was abandoned, but as someone who found a new beginning. This isn't about revenge, it's about rebuilding." As she stepped down from the stage, a man approached her near the side curtains. Tall, early 30s, with gentle eyes and an air of quiet confidence, he extended his hand. "I'm Noah Kensington," he said, "Chloe's cousin." Emily raised an eyebrow, half curious, half guarded. "I'm not here for drama," he added quickly, with a sincere smile. "I read your book twice. I work in venture philanthropy, and I think what you're building could change lives. I'd love to partner with you. No strings, just support." Emily studied him for a moment. The old her might have braced for a catch. The new her, she still moved with caution, but now it came with clarity, not fear. She smiled, slow and genuine. "Let's talk." Noah nodded. "Whenever you're ready." Later that night, as the twins twirled under the twinkle lights, Emily stepped onto the balcony alone for a breath. The skyline glittered beyond, not unlike the one she once watched in silence, before the storm, before the slap, before her name became a headline. She closed her eyes, the wind brushing her skin like a promise. She came to that wedding for justice, but she left with something greater, her voice. Thank you for watching this thrilling story brought to you by Sir Kelly Stories. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a single episode. We bring you a brand new story every day, and the next one drops tomorrow. You won't want to miss it. Stay tuned.